Hey, this is Ree here. Thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate everyone. Thank you so much for checking out my website, paradxastrology.com. I'm a professional astrologer and I can help you with anything. And thank you so much for liking and subscribing to my channel. It's really helped me a lot. There's a lot of new people here. Thank you so much. So let's get straight into this video. Okay, I want to talk about Saturn's transit into Aquarius, which is going to be happening in January. What does this mean for the world? What have we seen in the past that has happened? I've looked into the past charts to kind of see like what happened in history during these times, because we tend to have repetitive events that occur. So it's kind of good to go back. And I'm going to explain to you what that means. So if you didn't know, Saturn stays in one sign for about 2.5 years. Saturn went into Capricorn, where it is right now, on January 24th, 2020. So if you think about that, that was the beginning of this pandemic, right? So if you think about Saturn, Saturn is the one that comes and brings the karma. Okay. And that could be good. That could be good or bad. It doesn't have to just be bad, because I know you're thinking, oh, no, that could actually be good. And when it goes into Capricorn, it starts that karmic process, right? But when it goes into Aquarius, now you're going to be able to see the fruits of those things, those fruits of the karmas. So say, this is kind of how I look at it because of the dates. Say during 2020, maybe things were difficult for you, but you found your way through and you did it with integrity and you did it on the path of who you really are. Then now you're going to reap the rewards for that. Say if you lost yourself, right? If you lost yourself for a little bit and maybe you kind of did a little things that weren't really you or of integrity, now's where the karma is going to come. So I kind of think of it like that. So this will actually, in the long run, help a lot of people. As we know, Aquarius is about humanity and Saturn is about the public servants that serve humanity. So there will be a lot of things that have to do with governments and government being replaced, people getting replaced. And I'm going to give you one example from history. Now, the last time that Saturn was in there was in 93. And I'm going to explain to you what happened in 93. So it went into Aquarius on March 6th, 93. And Jupiter was also in Virgo, which is kind of similar to having Jupiter in Pisces. Well, not similar, but they're opposing signs. So it'll give a same kind of quality of energy. Not exactly the same though. Just an interesting note. What I'm looking at mostly is the retrograde. June 10th, 1993, that's when Saturn went retrograde. Now, what's interesting in Canada, what happened, like I said, Saturn is the civil servant, the person who's supposed to serve the people, which is what government is supposed to be. Anyways, it may not do that now. But in 93, it was very interesting. There was the first female Canadian prime minister. A lot of people may not know this. Her name was Kim Campbell, and she went into office on June 25th. So right after the retrograde, which started June 10th, we changed prime minister out of nowhere. The first female. Total retrograde. Retrograde is kind of like something you don't really expect to happen, maybe something that hasn't happened before. Then it went direct on October 28th, and she left office on November 4th. So she was only in there for a very short time, and right after the retrograde was done, she was out. So could we potentially see some kind of change of prime minister in this year? Now, I would have to look at way more than just that to make a determination, right? Because everyone's like, oh yes, I know everyone in Canada is really happy to hear that. But I would have to look at certain other things, but there's a possibility. There's always been seen some kind of change in who's running the public. And so we could possibly see that. We could possibly see that in other countries as well, depending on the chart. There was also some massive earthquakes. So Saturn in Aquarius can cause some earthquakes. And there was the Japan earthquake with 7.8, and there was the Indiana earthquake as well. Now, these could have to do, I don't know the exact dates, they could have to do with the eclipse energy as well. The retrograde, I'm not too sure of the dates, but this has caused these type of things before. There was also an oil tanker that was carrying 85,000 tons of crude oil that spilled into the Shetland Islands and into the North Sea, causing an ecological disaster in the area. Now, Saturn rules crude oil. We could potentially see something like that in retrograde or when it's moving forward too, something Saturn in Aquarius. Remember, it's in there for 2.5 years. There was also on February 26th, before the retrograde even occurred, there was the World Trade Center bombing. And that was on February 26th. That's when Saturn was at 29 degrees of Capricorn. Now, so that's what I wanted to bring up. It was also when Jupiter was in retrograde. When Saturn is at 29 degrees Capricorn, which will be between January 8th and January 16th, we could potentially see some kind of terrorist attack on humanity. Saturn is restrictive as well. Saturn is that dose of reality that can come in. Saturn is karma. So maybe. I can't just say off one thing, but I'm just kind of showing you what the potentials could be. There was also a severe blizzard in the eastern US bringing record snowfall to other severe weathers all the way from Cuba to Quebec. The chart for Canada, what some say is the chart for Canada, is in Aries. And so this would be occurring in its 11th house. So I can see why Saturn is a cold planet as well, right? So it could bring a blizzard to humanity in the 11th house, which is of the citizens or of gains, restricting gains because it would restrict profit and restricting the public. So that could have something to do with it as well. I just want to put it all out there. When it comes to technology, what kind of new technology could we potentially see? Because a lot of technology comes out of Aquarius and Saturn and Aquarius. There was a Windows NT 3.1 released by Microsoft. I was a child when this was happening, so I don't even know any of this. There's also the World Wide Web was born at CERN. I didn't realize it was born at CERN. That is very interesting. I'm going to have to look up more about that. Maybe potentially more things to do with the internet, more expanding of the internet. Probably not the metaverse. Doesn't seem like that's working out too well, but maybe some artificial intelligence or things like that. It's so funny because the first cloning of a human embryo actually happened during this time. In 1993, they could clone humans way before that, but it's funny how a lot of people these days think that that's not a possibility when it's been happening publicized since 1993 at least. There was also the US and Russia signed a treaty calling for bilateral reduction of strategic nuclear weapons. So could we see a treaty with the US and Russia? Probably not a treaty, but maybe we could potentially see some agreements that come with the war, because it's kind of funny how now there's a war between these two countries at this time. Not technically, but you know what I mean. What else was there? There's a lot of missions to space. If you watch my channel, you know how I feel about NASA. There's going to be a lot of things to do with space, going to space. So we'll see a lot about that as well. When it comes to music, I've been saying this for a long time. Yeah, hip hop has been around for 30 years now. No, more than 30, 40 years, something like that. But hip hop wasn't always the number one genre, and it's always changing. Right now, fashion is going to the 2000s. Now, back then, when Saturn was in Aquarius, technically Saturn shouldn't really change the music, but having Saturn in Aquarius, which is humanity, it could. And the biggest band back then was Nirvana. And I've been saying for a while, if you're an artist and you start a band with a similar sound to Nirvana at this time, you will be successful. I really do think music is changing to more of that grunge for the younger kids. Another weird thing, the World Health Organization, WHO, estimated 14 million people worldwide had the AIDS virus at this time. And it's really funny how right now we're dealing with the end of the pandemic. But the thing is, a lot of astrologers have been predicting that we should be careful once the nodes change. Next year in November, the nodes will change, and the south node, ketu, will be going into Virgo, which is health. And that could cause another pandemic. And with Saturn as well, doesn't look too good. It doesn't look too good. Let's hope not. I don't have enough information to say one way or another. I'm just giving you some options. There was also the beating of Rodney King. So we're going to see a lot of social issues come up, people wanting their freedom, people addressing unfairities in the culture, things that are not fair in our social circles or alliances, how we deal with each other on a humane basis. That will be confronted. That will be the karmas. The times we should be a little bit cautious of, because because when things go retrograde, things go a little haywire sometimes. The retrograde will be on June 17th, 2023, and Saturn will become progressive on November 4th, 2023. So between that time, we have to be careful of that time where we'll see the most events occur. A lot of the events I mentioned will happen between those times, except for a couple of them that I think, like I said, maybe with the terrorist attack type thing, that may have occurred before. So these are just some things that I saw in history that could potentially happen. But like I said, it depends what house this is going to be in for you. If you have very good karma, this will help you. This will really help you because Saturn is well placed in Aquarius. So just depending on your chart, I just wanted to show you a couple things that I found, and I'll probably do an update once we get closer to it. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate all of you, and I'll see you next time.